Hi, I'm Lara from Pineapple Works. Pineapple Works is polishing, porting and publishing indie games. Today I am going to talk with Placeholder Gameworks, the developers of Death and Taxes, which we ported to Nintendo Switch. In this 2D short narrative-based game, you assume the role of the Grim Reaper on an office job. Your job is to decide which people are going to live or die. Your choices will affect the world around you. Keep the chaos away or foil plots to destroy the world and rise through the ranks of Reapers. Death and Taxes is a game in the vein of narrative-based indie titles such as Paper Please, Rhines, Beholder and Animal Inspector, to name a few. Let's get into the conversation.
Yeah, so for Death and Taxes, our idea was mostly to make people think about death. So there's a lot of open-endedness and people could see it in their own way. And we also wanted to put the theme through different philosophical perspectives, but also talk about it through humor as well. So we think laughing about these things is very healthy as well.
Yeah, it's mostly about getting people to discuss the topic generally. It's mostly to just make people think about it more and feel safe while doing so that they can, strike up a conversation about it, with maybe a random stranger on the internet or some of their family or their friends, for example. So it's just mostly exposing the idea to people who may have a lot of experiences with it and need to find some comic relief, or don't have experiences with it and are terrified of it.
Yeah, in some ways the game is like a trolley problem, but there are also other themes discussed with the characters, and the characters are questioning why you are making any choices. So you have to look at yourself and think about it.
Oh yeah, we've had people say how relatable it is in a lot of ways, and how playing the game has made them think and paused them in their tracks to think about their decisions. For some people this doesn't happen at all, but for some people it really leaves a tangible impact that they can talk about and put into words. And whenever we've watched people play it, like streamers and such, like smaller ones or bigger ones, then even if people are not fully aware of it, they do stop and pause and think. When you watch them play, you can see that even with their face changing as they're processing this information, and they're thinking whether or not this person should survive for now or just die immediately. You can see that there is a process going on. I studied computer systems and engineering, but essentially what I did study was maths and physics. It was a little bit of programming on the hardware side, and then a lot of maths, and then a lot of physics, mostly about electronics. So I'm a hardware guy, actually, computer hardware. And then, that kind of naturally translated to game development, because because games have dynamic in them. Usually there are moving parts, and that's all maths and physics.
Did you want to study this particularly for game dev, or did you decide it afterwards to go for game dev?
No, I didn't study it for game dev. I actually wanted to get into practical chemistry, but failed. And then that was my second choice because I didn't know what else to choose. And I only figured out that this thing wasn't really about computers and was mostly about maths and physics until my first semester, and then I just decided to stick with it.
Okay. So what about you, Lena?
For me it was I went to study I thought I should go into graphic design, and I started studying media design, and it was perfect for game development as well, in a non-technical but more like artistic way, because we were learning about graphic design, audio design, script writing, advertisement, psychology, and everything basically that you kind of need to make the art part of the game. And yeah, I also didn't know at first that I wanted to make games. I wanted to make comics or illustrations or animations, but or go to work in like a actual advertisement company. But I never knew that I wanted to make games. So when I found it out, I was like, what? They never talked about games in the school, but everything that I learned, basically everything I can apply to video games as well.
So that leads to the question about Estonia and Estonian dev. I was wondering, do you know any Estonian game dev now who is making some cool game that you could recommend?
Yeah. We do know a few. There's one that comes to mind. It's well, he's a small-time indie dev. He's called Mikk Luige, and he's running a studio called Sidonian Games, and he's making a game called Void Speed Outlaw, and it's basically a retro, like 2D perspective-based racing game, and it looks really awesome, and it has a lot of really cool pixel art. Like, I think that's one of my current, like, the top of what I'm waiting for in terms of Estonian games. I actually want to play it a lot.
Circle Empires is another good Estonian game, and the guy behind it is working on a new game as well.
Yeah.
So he makes like very simple strategy games that are accessible to everybody, and that's like a really cool genre because I haven't seen many like strategy games that are super accessible. So he's doing it super well as well.
I mean, it was fun. Like most of the time when we were developing it, we weren't like, how to say, like living at home. Like we were living in a game development commune in Sweden called Spelkollektivet. And we were there for most of the time that we developed Death and Taxes. Like the first 3 months we spent in Estonia doing it like more or less full time, and then we moved to Sweden. And yeah, I mean, it was fun. We were living together with like 30, 40 game developers, shared the same space. Like we had a private room, but like we had office space there and everything. And eventually our writer came there as well for a couple months, or 5 weeks. And then we that was when we were finishing up the game. It was really fun.
Yeah, we were very poor, so we were living on savings, and we also got from 2 places, like for like some applications, we got some money. Scholarships. Yeah. And only because of that we could like finish it without doing any other work during that time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were like running out of money, and it was like very important for us for Death and Taxes to do at least somewhat well, or otherwise we would have to go back to like have some other job.
Yeah, like it was basically in the state where we had like money until like May 2020, and the game was supposed to come out like in the end of February of 2020. And yeah, so it was kind of like either the game does well like immediately, or we immediately start looking for freelance.
So basically, I was going around at a lot of events, so I made a lot of new acquaintances in the game industry, and one of them was James, that was the owner of Spell Collective, and he asked us to like move there, and I was still in university, so I couldn't do it right away. But when when I finished my studies, I was like, this seems like the coolest place on earth. So there's no other places like this, really, like this big communities that live together in game dev. So yeah, of course we went there.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good offer, and it was going to save us money. So that was the kind of important part.
People are the most important thing in there, because there are so many like people that are just radiating creative energy and passion about game dev, and it's always nice to talk with them about it. And also every week they have these progress demonstrations, and it's everybody who likes game dev and wants to make their project and just live together with other game developers, this is the best place to be.
Now I was thinking to ask you something more about the development process of the game, and first I was very curious about the colors decision. So how did you decide those particular colors? Like, what was your process? And I can imagine that if you're a graphic designer, it wasn't just like I'm gonna go red, white and black. It was more particular shade of particular color, right?
Yes, so I really love colors. At first we thought to make this game as a watercolor and also like a comic-y black and white thing. And then I was choosing, maybe we could have one pop of color, just one color in there. And at first I was thinking red, and then I was like, but red is like so overused in these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of yellow, like they have like a very strong yellow in some like Sin City or red and yellow, and I was like, this is so overused as well. And my favorite color, blue, was also like I was also trying to choose a blue color. So I was like, but blue is like so just like slow and depressing kind of color. And we want this game to have more like pop of color and be more happy. And so I wanted to give out the exact like opposites of black and white and very colorful at the same time, to be very colorful and not very colorful at the same time. So I chose a color of blue, and then I took on the color wheel the responding yellow and red as well. So they are, if you put a triangle on the color wheel, then you would get these exact hues. And we used only those hues mostly. So I had a strict rule that only these three hues are used. And usually you shade with other kind of colors as well. But this game is more like flat papery feel, so you don't have to do the shading as well. And it's really good restriction to make this game in a very like fast way. You don't have to decide of color ever making this game. Basically you have three choices, or you make it like mostly black and white, and then you have, okay, this item needs a pop of color, will it be blue, red or yellow? And usually only one makes sense, so you don't have to use your brain power during making the decision for art. And like this is streamlining and making like the making of art so much simpler and faster in this way. Like it's always a good idea to think of some rules and restrictions that may make it easier for you and also more distinct for everybody.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you then about your favorite character from Death and Taxes. What is your favorite character, why, and if you could tell a little bit of history around that character.
Yeah, well, my favorite character is Mortimer, because he's actually one of the like the weirdest characters in the game. He kind of started out as a simple like shopkeeper type character, but he was the character that changed the most during the development. So at first he was just meant to be a shopkeeper, just a function of the game to give the player items. Then he was meant to also be a kind of a mentor character who would kind of give you hints about the game. Then he also became a joker. So all of the items you buy in the game, he tells you just outlandish, obviously false stories of how he got them, or maybe they're not false. And then, like, he turned out to be this eldritch entity who can actually warp space time itself. So, and there's not that much information about him. So, like, I really like his character arc as well, because we show the player a little bit about it, but most of it is still just like shrouded in mystery. Nobody knows what exactly Mortimer is and what he's capable of. And people actually really respect that. We've seen a lot of feedback about this.
For me, of course, I love Fate. It's the biggest character that's like thought through in the game very deeply, and the story of Fate, and a lot of other people love Fate a lot as well, and I will talk about the reasons here as well. It's really funny. So basically, I needed a character that's a boss to Grim Reaper, and I thought, like, who's bigger than death? And I don't want to bring any like certain religion into it, like nowadays religion, or make like a god, just like a Christian god, for example, or something like that. So I thought something else. Fate seems like something that's like big. It's also talked in like different cultures as a character, and like Grim Reaper. And Fate started off, I gave him right away the very strict kind of character that's very logical, and I know some people that are like that, and I wanted to make the character as from the Myers-Briggs type indicator, if you know that. It's the INTJ person. It's very logical person, and I'm very proud of that character because it's a very original character for our game, and everybody who joined gave some life to that character. So basically, I gave everything that I thought about Fate to our concept artist, and he drew a perfect character inspired from some animes and like a villainy kind of character, and he was like perfect for the role. And then we got the voice actor who was
Douglas Pennant.
Pennant, and he's so great for this role. He was like very like the strict like the character was, and but also very warm-hearted and fatherly sounding, and he has this great British accent, and the character is like a fatherly figure, but also he's super distant. So I'm sometimes joking that people with like daddy issues start liking the character especially much. And it's very funny because he has style. He is very, very, very powerful. He always wears nice suits, and he's very distant, but also cares in a weird way. So you always have him really close, but he's always very distant, and you don't know what he's doing really.
And he's very inhuman, actually.
Yes.
He's very alien. He's actually, and it's very like people are very well aware of this as well, how alien he is.
And he's the kind of like character that you feel bad for as well. That you would, a lot of people say they just want to hug him, give him a nice warm hug, and so a lot of people just love the character, and I'm very proud because. With his yellow bow tie as well. The story about the yellow bow tie is also like was like he needs to have something distinct, and he had a bow tie from the drawings, and I was like, we have red and blue, but those are not that distinct. But a yellow bow tie would make like a lot of sense. So because of the color choices, also he got the yellow bow tie, and that became like a symbol as well for him, and is like instantly recognizable with the white glasses and yellow bow tie. I also made some like cosplay of him, and a lot of people love to draw the character as well.
Yeah, and like Fate, it really resonates with the players as well. It's probably the most popular character that we have, and it's kind of because there's a certain degree of relatability there, because the whole design, like as a character for Fate, was about giving it a moral, so let's say a moral puzzle, but a very human motivation. So, like spoilers ahead, like Fate just wants to leave his job. He wants to quit his job, and the only way to do that is to end the world. So that's a very human thing to relate to, but with like completely unfathomable consequences, right? So it's a fusion of this like a very practical problem that a lot of people have, wanting to quit their jobs and do something better for themselves, because obviously being the fate of the world is a shitty job. Like nobody like
and when we talked about the philosophy of death as well, so this talks about the philosophy of like immortality. Like if you would be here forever, what then?
What would you be doing?
Why would like death maybe be like a positive thing?
What a momentous day. I am honored to welcome.
So, what about the voice acting? I was curious, how did you figure the voice actors? How did you decide for them for particular characters?
Well, for the first 3 voice actors, because we added more characters later on with a free update, the first characters were... it was kind of hard for us to come up with a lot of them, because like we didn't have any character or narrative design done yet when we kind of first started looking for them. Well, Lena just had a couple of contacts from events that she had been previously or recently visited, and we kind of had a short list prepared. So we had like 2 actors we could ask. They said like, yeah, they would want to participate, but we didn't even really have that much for them at that point. But we just, with Fate, it was the first character we cast as well. It was Doug, and like we all, like back then we already knew like, okay, like this is perfect, like just do whatever you just did, but now try to keep that and let's do it for the entire game once it's finished. And then later on, like we were basically looking for a voice that would fit the character, and we had some specific visions in our head for how, like, what the character should convey. And then we cast Mortimer through, again, like Lena's as an acquaintance, and then we cast Conscience based on a very small like casting call. And didn't even have too many applicants then, but we found Bonnie Bogovic, and she did like a pretty amazing job with that character as well. It was like, again, like we knew that, okay, like this is the one. Like we needed something that would like characterize the part that this character would have to play, and like what they need to tell the player. So that was most of our decision making. Like it was mostly to add the emphasis and bring life to the character.
Yeah, and when we finished the game and we gave out the update, then we made like a big casting call for all of the other characters that you can meet at the bar. And that was really fun because then we already had a lot of Twitter followers, and in like an hour or something we got like so many people applying, and we got like over 600 like audio files auditioning for different characters, and we went through all of them and we picked the best ones out, and that was an amazing experience. We had a lot of fun. It was very tiring, but it was also like super fun, and I would suggest anybody who makes a game would it's so important to have voice acting in there, especially if you have a lot of story that you're basing this game on.
Yeah, it gives it a lot more emphasis in character. So it's just like you like your voice actor is going to bring some ideas on the table that you might have never thought of for the characters or the events that they are voicing. So generally, it's it's something that can add a lot of like value and emotional impact.
I feel like it's the most important thing is you bring a person behind the character, so the character becomes real. Before it might be just a picture and some text, but then you bring a real person into that character that acts with their voice, and that changes so much, and that like brings life to this, and brings like believability to all of this, and people could connect to it.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you now about the future projects and what are you working on now, if you could say something about it.
Yeah. We are working on like kind of announced but not really talked about adventure strategy game that's going to be done whenever it's done, I guess. Probably like next year earliest, maybe a year after that, who knows. And it's basically like what we want to achieve with it is to make a kind of true to its roots adventure strategy game. So looking at games like Heroes of Might and Magic and King's Bounty and Age of Wonders, but put it in a more modern presentation in terms of the design and the mechanics. Mm-hmm. So basically it won't be anything like those games, but it will have similar aspects to it and some essence to it.
You're gonna announce it on your Death and Taxes Discord channel?
Yes, and if you see this interview in a few weeks, then maybe we already have a Steam page up. So look up Broken Alliance. This is going to be the game's name. And you can follow us on Twitter, Placeholder Gameworks, or join our Discord, or you can go to, we only have the deathandtaxesgame.com webpage currently. We're going to put everything there as well.
So I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Odd and Lin. If you would like to try the game, you'll find all the links in the description below. Subscribe to our channel and follow on social media to get more stories about other games we work with. Have a great day!